And we are live. Good morning, Facebook. This is Shera Sever. I'm the host of my newest series, which is Bridging the Human Divide. And this series is committed to having conversations with everyday change makers as we explore ways to move from the polarization that we are experiencing in many different environments in our country and in the world. And the intent is to, as I say, gather around the fire of the collective heart so that we can all move forward together with more grace, understanding, dialogue, and engage compassion in action. And I made a conscious choice to start this series with a very special guest in Sedona, Arizona, which is where I'm currently based. And my guest today, and who I'm launching this series with, is Susie Belier. She's a holistic health practitioner, and she's the founder of the Creation Temple in Sedona, Arizona. Today, Susie and I are going to discuss the need and ways to access and bring more of the divine feminine into our conversations and interactions in these unprecedented times. So welcome, 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 Susie. I am so happy that you're joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Shera. This is such an important conversation, and I'm honored. I'm honored to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. What I'm most curious about when I called you and said, "Hey, I got this new idea, and this is what it is." I'm curious, like, what inspired you to join the conversation on bridging the human divide?
Well, right now, I am an empath and I'm deeply sensitive. So I can feel the division very acutely and it hurts my heart. And part of my mission here on this planet is to bring people together. And so this degree of polarity that we're experiencing right now, it's really, like, emotionally, it's very challenging for me to witness it and for me to experience it in my own life and with friends and family. And, you know, it's very challenging for me. So I have a lot of passion and a lot of heart for bringing people together and having real, honest, raw, vulnerable conversation that everyone can hopefully relate to so that we can find common ground. I'm very passionate about finding common ground. We can disagree on all sorts of things, but there's always something that you and I will have in common. And I want to find that and focus on that.
Yeah, I feel that we come from the same tree. And I love hearing you say that about, let's focus on the commonalities. For me, that's like, let's focus on connecting the heart of humanity, those places where we pulse and breathe together from. Yeah. And I think that's where I remember meeting you was, it actually was here on Facebook, I believe, just the conversations that you and I were engaged in initially when this divide, this polarization was really turning into, a dark, hairy monster, if you don't mind my describing it that way. I really resonated with what you were sharing on Facebook. It's like, let's find those places. And again, I can hear, being an empath, how that personally, I guess that would just really be deepening your personal mission to find ways to depolarize.
Who knew it would end up this way? But yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I've always been in the mindset of transcending polarity. So now that there's even more of it, yeah, it's full on.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
this is a big question, and I think this is a topic of, you know, the human experiment right now. But just as an empath, do you have any sense of what some of the causes of the divide or this polarization that we're experiencing in so many areas of the world, in our workplaces, in our communities, even in our families? I mean, what could be a possible cause? Like, what's the source of this?
Yeah, well, inherently we live in a polarity universe. That just means that there's light and dark, light and shadow. That's inherent in our existence in this universe. So this planet is no different. We're going to have the opposite ends of the spectrum. That's just how it works on this planet. Additionally, especially because of what's happening now, there's a lot of fear being projected onto us by a lot of media sources. And people are buying into the fear. I think a lot of people actually are more empathic than they realize, and they're picking up on the fear that's coming through the media, the fear of people around them. So there's just so much fear being blasted at us right now. Oh, the numbers are rising. Oh, this person's doing this and this person's not doing this. And I mean, the fear aspect alone, if you think about, if you're not in fear, you can't be controlled, you can't be manipulated. And whether or not you believe in some grand conspiracy theory or not, you can see that those people who are in fear, and not everyone is, but those people who are, have a much greater ability to be manipulated and controlled, and that fear perpetuated. One of the things that I channel an energy called Prime Creator, and one of the things that Prime Creator was describing with this whole experience right now is that it was set in motion, but right now we as the collective are perpetuating it. This whole thing could be done tomorrow if everyone got out of fear. It would be done. And the reason the polarity keeps expanding and amplifying is because some of us continue to engage with the fear.
I'm so much in agreement with you on that. Yeah, I've had several different conversations on this topic, and I've always also been interviewed about it. And fear, it's at the foundation of the division. It seems we continue to go back to that topic of fear, not just the external fear, but that external fear actually feeds on, you know, our as human beings, an inner insecurity, that inner fear, that self-doubt, the scared inner child, the scared little girl or little boy.
We all have unhealed parts of ourselves that this experience right now is triggering massively. We all have an unhealed inner child. We all have an unintegrated ego. And the ego does not like change. So right now where change is being forced upon us, the ego doesn't know what to do with that, but to battle itself, unless it's, you know, unless you have an integrated ego. There's a battle going on internally in every one of us. And that amplifies the polarity as well.
Absolutely. I love that you're sharing this. I've sometimes have framed this as, you know, the inner battle that an adolescent would have. Because, you know, the rebel and the resistance and the claiming that this is mine and the identity. And I think that's contributing a little bit too. I mean, if we were to go into what part of the ego is being triggered through all of this, both internally and through, as you said, the media, the different external structures that are feeding into that which is not who we are.
Yeah. So
that leads me into actually the topic that you suggested for this launch, and I love it that we're actually starting the launch with the topic of the divine feminine and how does the divine feminine fit into bridging, as we call, bridging the human divide? I have to, there we go. And so that's a question that I have for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's also not just how the topic, how we access how do we access the divine feminine as a means to healing this situation. Thank you.
Well, the divine feminine, if you think about the essence of divinity, divinity accepts all. So both sides, if you will. Divinity is okay with whatever you believe. Divinity is okay with whatever choice you make, right? And then when you think of the mothering energy, she's gracious, she's non-judgmental, she brings compassion, she brings kindness. And I invite everyone that's tuning into this to think about a woman in their life. Hopefully everyone has had this experience of some woman, whether it was your mother or your aunt or a mentor, or some woman in your life who just absolutely supports you without judgment. She accepts you, she loves you, she holds you. So you combine the mothering energy with the divinity, and that's my idea of the divine feminine. And how could she not bridge the gap? How could she not transcend polarity? She's so loving.
I love that too. It's like, what would a loving mother do, right? And how do we as individuals, I want to really dive into this a little bit, because the divine feminine is, I really, I'm going to say a hot topic, but it's a field that I have immersed myself in for well over a decade, in just numerous ceremonies and teachings, and accessing through different practices, particularly heart meditations and heart practices. So I really want to help people understand even more about the presence of the divine feminine, and just on a more of a collective, in a more of a collective field, and how, like, tapping into divine feminine and accessing divine feminine, how can this help the fear? Not just the internal fear, but how can we neutralize, or as I, depolarize the fear that you've explained is coming in from so many different areas? I'd love to really explore this more, this divine feminine, and how she really is she's our ally.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, can you just imagine if you started to put into practice acceptance of everyone and acceptance of every perspective and every point of view? If you stop judging other people, can you imagine what your experience would be like, and then the collective experience as a whole? I mean, it's really quite simple. It's not complicated. It's really not complicated. But the problem is, as we said before, we all have unhealed parts of ourselves that are being triggered right now and that are in reactivity. So it starts within. It starts with accepting yourself. It starts with bringing that divine mother energy to yourself. And you can just think about, if you have a child, or if you have a pet, or even if you have a plant, I'm a plant person, think about the unconditional love you have for your child or your pet. And that you can feel it when you start to think about it. You can feel it, and men can do this too. Imagine that you're holding your baby in your arms, or your pet in your arms, and that love that starts to generate within your heart. And then what you do is you turn that back in on yourself. And you just pour all that love into yourself. Oh, I love you, Susie. I love you, little Susie. And I've done a ton of inner child healing with myself. And so I think of myself, depending on what's being triggered, I think of myself at different ages. And so I hold my little 10-year-old Susie and I just give her a big hug. Or I pick up my little 2-year-old Susie and I carry her around with me. and I'm just soothing her, loving her. Can you imagine if everyone did that, Shera? If everyone on the planet did that for themselves, how healed we would be, and there would be no need to criticize other people's perspectives or points of view.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you, I've done a lot of this kind of personal work. And again, I want to go even deeper. So we're here in the City of Light, right? In City of Lights here in Sedona. So, having this kind of conversation about divine feminine and, unconditional love and healing the inner child and having these conversations. This is everyday conversation here in Sedona. I want to, again, even bridge the divide in our conversation. How could someone who's, leading an organization, it could be a community organization, a civic organization, even their own company, and how can we help them? Maybe you have some examples. How could we help them access a few tools that bring them into the divine feminine within themselves? Because I think this is what you're sharing, that we can access that peace, that expansion, that unconditional love, and that connection with, there's a divine feminine collective field that is available to us to access as well. And I'm wondering if you could comment a bit on just, someone in their everyday life that doesn't have the, didn't make the choice to be in Sedona at this moment, how we can help them access the divine.
You can do this anywhere. You don't have to be in Sedona, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think right now is a really important time for people in leadership that have communities that they're facilitating to focus on people's skills, to focus on people's strengths, to focus on what's working within your culture and within your community, and to bring more energy to that, because there are so many things that aren't working right now. Okay, we are addressing those, we're going to address those, but let's first bring the focus into what's working. What skills do people bring to the table? What successes are we having? And this isn't necessarily a divine feminine thing, but to bring the energy to those things so that that can expand and that can be amplified, and to celebrate. Right now, there's not a lot of celebration going around. So to celebrate when your culture or company has a success, to celebrate when someone within your community has a success, and to bring those types of energies back.
Yeah, I really love that reminder of celebration, which is such a foundational, fundamental activity of life among humans. I mean, life is a celebration. I know that you, with your practices, Susie, that you actually see clients and help clients. I'm wondering if you have, and of course, we keep it confidential, but if you have any examples of how you have used accessing the divine feminine with your clients, and again, along this theme of bridging the human divide. Just any stories to share so we could ground this in a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll just share something non-specific. I facilitate a lot of inner child healing work. And so one of the things that I've had to learn as a facilitator, I'm very fiery and I get straight to the point. I cut to the chase. And one of the things I had to learn was to listen, because as an intuitive and an empath, I get the energy right away. I don't need 20 minutes of you telling me what's happened for me to get the energy. But it's very therapeutic for my client to be heard, to be felt, to be seen. And so the divine feminine takes a step back, she opens the container and she listens. And so a lot of inner child healing is just listening and modeling to people that I feel them, I hear them, I see them, and then they can learn to listen to themselves. And they can learn to hear and see and feel themselves, because that's what's really needed for healing. They don't even need me. I'm just teaching them how to do it. And that's what the divine feminine does. You think about what a good mother will teach their child how to be successful in this world. She doesn't try to be the mother the whole lifetime. She gives the child the skills and the tools to do it on their own. And so that's really the focus of my work, is teaching people how to do it for themselves, giving them the tools and the skills.
Yeah, I really love that. And, I'm just visualizing again, because my audience is quite diverse here. So I'm visualizing again, a high-powered leader, responsible for the welfare of a lot of people. And I want to use the divine masculine as an example right now, but how can we remind that warrior, right, who's really, he's leading in unprecedented times right now, with a tremendous amount of responsibility, with an incredible amount of uncertainty. And how can we help, we'll just start with our male leadership. How can we help our male leadership access the divine feminine just in very subtle ways, so that they too can be part of this bridging the human divide?
Yeah. Oh, what a beautiful question, Shera.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
think a lot of it has to do with being soft and gentle with them, offering our own divine feminine to them so that they can be nourished and that they can land in a place within themselves that they can access both their divine masculine and divine feminine. A lot of people don't know what it is to be with the divine feminine. A lot of people don't have a balanced polarization of the divine masculine and divine feminine. Maybe they're really far on one end of the spectrum, male or female, doesn't matter. But
Thank you. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Because I know that this is actually one of your one of your superpowers, if we could say that, in your work, is that that balancing of this divine feminine and divine masculine.
Yeah.
And bridging a divide, well, what we're talking about is a balance, and we're talking on a very elemental flavor, very elemental level right now. So a little bit more, if you could, just share with us how we can do that, regardless of our gender identification.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. It has so much to do with knowing ourselves. Most people don't actually know themselves. They don't know their own rhythms. They don't know their own energy. They don't know what they like or what they want or what they desire. So it starts there. It starts with that journey of getting to know ourselves. And then we can begin to see, where do I land in my masculine, and where do I do things from my feminine energy? The reason I know what I know about the divine feminine is because most of my life I was in an unhealthy masculine energy. And when I realized what was going on, I was like, I need to balance these polarities. And so I really dove deep into the feminine side of things. And now I have a sense within me, when is it called for the divine feminine to show up? When is it called for the divine masculine to show up? And honestly, when they're so integrated, it's not like you're consciously choosing which one you're going to pull out of your tool belt. It's a natural expression that comes from you. And that's the most beautiful part, in my opinion, when you can bring the compassionate, loving, divine feminine and the, really centered, strong boundaries of the divine masculine. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Did I answer
really
your question?
You did, and I want to go deeper because it's such a great, it's such a wonderful topic. So I heard you say one thing that, you personally have had these experiences where you were out of balance, and you called it a toxic masculine. And I'm wondering if, again, we're not talking, this is not a battle of men, woman, we're in an archetypal conversation right now, but I'm wondering if toxic divine, or not toxic divine, but if toxic masculine is, we went back to the causes, we went into that fear, that's the fear, external and internal. That's what's creating the separation, the division, the polarization on multiple levels. I'm wondering if also the, as you said, what is toxic masculine? Maybe that's the question I'm trying to get to. What is toxic masculine?
Well, I'll say it this way. I experience it as an unbalanced masculine energy.
Okay.
When the masculine is expressing in a way that does not honor itself and another, then it becomes toxic. And I know that's a bit generic, but I really want to be gentle around this topic because that term is thrown out there a lot, and I'm just a little like, I really want to honor our men who are doing amazing and who are doing their best and who are still trying to find themselves. I really want to honor that and not bring too much, negativity towards that.
Yeah, we don't want to create more polarization in the conversation. That's the opposite of the intent here. So I understand that. It's just, if we can really just understand who we are, honor who we are,
and I'll
take
give an
care
example. If you like, I'll give an example.
Yes, please.
Men who go into the military, and I want to preface this and saying, I'm not saying that all men who have been in the military or who are in the military are toxic masculine. I'm not saying that. But there is a subset of men who go into the military. They're pumped full of vaccinations. They're going through this rigorous process of being told exactly what to do. They are not supposed to, almost by definition, they're not supposed to have their own sense of self because they are in service to a specific objective. That's it. And so oftentimes, some of these men lose their sense of who they truly are. And then when they come out into the world, they've completed their service, they come back into the world, they do not know how to interact in a way that honors others' perspectives, others' opinions, other points of view, etc. And that is very toxic to a community that wants to work in harmony. And it's not any fault of theirs. It's literally what they were in training to do.
Yeah, I think you hit a jewel there, or excavated a jewel with that explanation that you shared. And again, it's a model of what has happened in a person's life, male or female, a person's life, in a human life. What has happened that has conditioned one in a way to divide them within, to keep them separate from who they are, to create this polarization within. It could even be a need to control and a need to hold on to these older structures, for example. So I think we tapped into it with that. I really appreciate it. Anything else you want to share just for humanity and our relationship, with the divine feminine? Again, how can we honor divine feminine? How can we access divine feminine? How can we partner with the divine feminine in bridging this human divide and depolarizing so many behaviors and conversations and actions that are happening right now?
It's pretty simple, actually. We are all channels, meaning we all bring through energy, we all bring through thoughts, we all bring through emotion and feeling. We get to choose what we're bringing through. We can bring through hate, judgment. We can bring through acceptance, love, appreciation. We get to choose. And I really strongly believe that in this time, we each need to take personal responsibility for what energy we're bringing through. I'm going to say it again because it's so important. We need to take personal responsibility, each and every one of us, for the energies, the words, the actions that we're bringing through. What I'm seeing right now that deeply, deeply troubles me is people blaming the government, people blaming our local stores, people blaming each other, all externalized. That's not going to work if we want to grow as a society. If we want to change what's happening right now on this planet, everyone needs to take personal responsibility and stop blaming what's outside of us.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, please. Did you want to say something else about that?
Well,
Go ahead.
when we do that, then the divine feminine is expressed.
Yeah, I agree with you. We actually allow her to allow her to be expressed. And I love that. So taking responsibility for our words, our actions, and the intention behind what we're saying, why we're doing, checking in with our thoughts. And, you know, I was listening to one of my teachers last night in a video, and he said, I loved this, but he said the pause is one of the greatest of spiritual practices, the pause. And when I heard that, it's like, it goes right back to what we're talking about today, the divine feminine, the loving mother, you know, the accepting mother, not the reactive, right? Not coming from a place of fear, but using that pause to, I think is an element of divine feminine.
100%. And I'll share a vulnerability here.
Yay.
One of the things that hurts me the most is when a friend or an acquaintance makes assumptions about me. Like maybe I say or do something that triggers them, and they jump to an assumption or a perspective without finding out from me where it's coming from. I frequently feel hurt by that. And so one of the practices I've put in place for myself is if I'm triggered by someone, I step back and take that pause and look at myself first before making assumptions about them, before jumping to conclusions. Because I know how it feels when it's done to me, and it sucks. So I want to practice the divine feminine and bring in that pause if I feel a trigger.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. And, you know, vulnerability, I think, is also a huge piece of bridging the human divide. When we allow ourselves to be the vulnerable human being, to share our, whatever, our fears, our imperfections, that's what really is connecting the heart, what I call, as I said, the heart of humanity. There's a lot of strength, as we know, there's a lot of strength that comes from vulnerability. And just you're sharing that, you know, I'm sure a lot of people are going to feel, again, more connection and more resonance with you as a guest here. Because we're, you know, we're on a journey together. And we are all walking ourselves, each other home. I really believe in that as part of our journey as well. Yeah, thank you for that. I'm curious, just this is a chance for you to talk a little bit more about your work and just specifically as it relates to our topic, divine feminine, bridging the human divide. What is really lighting you up today in the work that you're doing with others or in your community?
Yeah, I have to say that the Creation Temple, my website, creationtemple.com, that is like, it's like a fortress in my life right now, because the top level members and I, the master creators and I, we meet via video every week. And when we meet, we're coming together as a soul family. And we have 4 agreements that we live by. And one of those is, you know, we don't judge each other. We hold space for each other. And each and every member puts that into practice when we meet. And so it's this safe, sacred container that we get to come into every week knowing that whatever we bring into that container, it's safe to express, it's safe to heal, and then we focus on what we're creating. You know, I talked about celebrating and remembering to honor people's skills and their tools that they have. And so every week when we meet, we talk about what we're creating so that we can keep this forward movement energy on the planet. And I know that the energy that's generated within that group is rippling out into the collective in ways that I have no clue about, but I know it's happening. And so it's a way for me and all the group members to be in service to the shift that we want on this planet. Because my overall soul mission is heaven on earth, restoring heaven on earth. So whatever way I can find to do that, and that's what the Creation Temple is all about, restoring heaven on earth. And that lights me up every time.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that was a perfect example of just a nice way to kind of to recap a lot of what we have spoken about. And you mentioned something else that I think is very important for the depolarization. And you know, we're talking about behaviors, but it's that creating that sense of safety by not judging.
Yeah.
And I mean, and we all do it as human beings. So again, catching ourselves when we're doing something like that. These are first steps. I mean, these are elemental steps in, you know, in depolarizing very, very, very complex situations. You mentioned the non-judging, the being curious, allowing this emergence of yet to be revealed creativity and manifestation in, I'm going to just call it the collective field, or even, I like to go a little bit further and call it collective heart intelligence. And that's a conversation we'll have further in this series. So as we can go ahead.
Just highlight that curiosity piece, because I love that so much.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just a naturally curious person. And I want to understand your point of view. And that doesn't mean that I'm not strong in who I am. It's just that I'm open and I'm willing to learn. And I think that is a very important quality to bring to the table right now on social media, in our conversations. Again, that listening piece and being curious. Well, why are you feeling this way? Why do you have this point of view? What got you there? Really to have that innate curiosity to bring understanding to the conversation, I think is key.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm also, cultivating curiosity is something that I've spoken on and taught in the past too. Is like, how do we do that? Why do we do that? Why it's important? And I so agree with you on that. I just love it. So to reach you, Susie, we would do that through the creationtemple.com. Is that correct?
No, just creationtemple.com. And there's a contact page on there. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me there.
Okay, fabulous. And then we'll also have this interview posted in different places on Facebook and on YouTube. And I also just wanted to mention what's coming up here with Bridging the Human Divide. This is just our introduction. We chose the Divine Feminine as a soft, gentle topic to lead into the series. Coming up following Wednesdays, I'm going to be introducing leaders that are involved in the social justice system. That's Justin Sinestra here from Sedona. I'm interviewing Charlie Ryback back in the San Francisco Bay Area, whose organization called Beyond Polarization works with families in bridging the divide. I've got another wonderful guest called Anna Holub, who's now up in the Pacific Northwest. She's the author of Freedom and Forgiveness. She's done incredible mediation work throughout the world. Samantha Sweetwater is another guest of ours who's quite known in the transformative festival communities, and many more. So please go to Igniting the Spark on Facebook to see our full lineup. And there will also be another series of just recorded interviews with guests. So Susie, I'm so happy and so honored that you decided to join us and launch this latest social experiment with me right here in Sedona. And I just wish you many blessings to all the people that you are sharing your mission with, so that we can once again become a caring, compassionate, understanding, and curious society that's moving forward together.
Thank you, Shera.
Anything else? Yeah.